it doesn't matter if we have to consider our universities now, because I heard people talk about, the current challenge we face in the energy sector now, not even talking about the nuclear one, which atomic energy, which you're involved in, saying we don't have enough capacity. The human capital is not just there, they're not developing it. Are you considering, or is the Commission considering also developing that capacity in that sector as a backup somewhat?
You bet we are. One of the things we did first is to partner with universities. Currently, the Nigeria Atomic Energy Commission supervises and manages the operations of 6 nuclear energy research centers. 5 of them are based in universities. And the main policy thrust or the mandate of those centers is to ensure that they serve as our own focal points for the creation of the needed critical manpower for the implementation of the program. And if you would allow me, I may want to wind back a little bit. When first the Nigeria Atomic Energy Commission law was enacted in 1976, it was actually signed in August of 1976. 2 years later, 2 nuclear energy centers were created to operate at the then University of Ife, now Bafemi Awolowo University, and the Ahmadu Bello University's area. They have trained some persons, but that's a long time ago. You're talking about over 30 years.
Yeah.
And what we're doing is, when that happened, government didn't quite go through with the plan to implement a nuclear power program. And what we're doing now is, now that there is a definite government decision to go on with that, we will have to realign the training objectives of those centers and realign them with our national program in a way that we're working in the same direction. And what we've also done since the Commission was activated in 2006 is to work with these centers and be able to work out appropriate mechanisms and plans for training manpower. I even want to quickly add, just in another 3 weeks or so, we're going to be having a formal launch of the National Graduate Program in Nuclear Science and Engineering in partnership with 5 universities, as well as with International Atomic Energy Agency. I mentioned, the key issue is that you must have a vibrant human resource base. And if you don't expand that process within the country and develop the capacity for that, it simply won't work, and that's what we do.
I like to think like the Nigerian, the real Nigerian. We like quick, fixed things. And what are the signs are we likely to see so that we know that, well, in addition to the turbines, the gas, the nuclear energy is coming on stream, so that we can now say in 10 years, coupled with the other 2 sources of energy generation for the nation, the problem of electricity will be a thing of the past. There must be some kind of telltale sign so that we know that from your own angle, something is in the offing.
Yeah, I think you're quite right. Whenever you have a program, you've got certain set objectives. There are expected outcomes at the other end. It takes a while for you to arrive at the ultimate objectives, the outcomes, the final outcomes. What we're doing is, first of all, if we've identified that we need XYZ number of scientists and engineers, technicians within the country to do that. So maybe in another year or so, you could have several hundreds of people being trained. That will be a mark that we are moving forward. So maybe in another 2 years, if I still come to tell you we don't have the people or whatever, it doesn't make sense. So we've now activated the program, partnering with universities. And so, first of all, being able to create the requisite manpower gradually is an indication of some form of meaningful progress. Then one of the things we're also doing is that when you want to implement a nuclear power program, the element of siting is quite rigorous.
Yeah,
because it is quite sensitive.
A question here coming through for you. He says, that's Nii. Are you going to intimate the communities which these plans will be cited of their effects?
Oh yes, and that is quite important. And by the time you're doing that, everything should be on the table. for everybody to understand what it is, the possible risk involved, what needs to be done, and so on and so forth.
Do you really think, sorry to cut you, but do you really think that we're ripe enough? Because, you know, we've seen nuclear disasters, and we see that even in the Western world, Western powers are beginning to shut down their nuclear plants. France had a problem recently about how to dispose of their nuclear waste, and it's something that they use for electricity. Do you think it's something that we should even be exploring?
Thank you. I'll come to that question, but let me take on the part of siting first. When you go to site a nuclear power plant, because of the safety cases you've mentioned, you need to look at a number of things. First of all, the physical environment in terms of seismicity, water resources available, its effects on flora and fauna, its effect on the human communities, its nearness to the grid, and a number of physical, economic, and technical parameters. Once you've been able to ensure that that works well, that is when you go on with the detailed studies and then give the final go ahead for them to start the project. Yes, you're quite right. I think nuclear is one of the technologies that evokes a little bit of emotions when people talk about it in the developed environment in countries like ours. France generates about 78 to 80% of their own electricity from nuclear power plants. I don't quite believe that they have a problem because they have the largest nuclear power program in terms of percentage.
They
in the
do,
world.
but they do have a problem with also disposing of their waste.
I think that is an international problem. There are technical solutions for disposing of nuclear waste. I wouldn't want to get into that within this space of time. There are political considerations. Nobody wants a repository to be at his backyard and so on and so forth. So it is. But I think the main issue I would want to maybe address from your own line of questioning is the recent accidents in Fukushima and Daiichi.
In Japan?
Yes, in Japan, in March of this year.
Okay.
Maybe a little bit longer, I think it's about 1979, there was also the 3 Mile Island accident in the state of Pennsylvania. 1986, the Chernobyl accident. I would say in the case of the 3 Mile Island accident, there was significant damage to the reactor, loss of investment, but no human being was lost, nobody was seriously injured. In the case of Chernobyl, like we about 30 or so persons died at the time, and a few dozens more have died. The Fukushima and Daiichi accident was quite an unfortunate one, in the sense that you have a combination of factors, a large earthquake, and then a very huge tsunami. And the design basis, the reactors that were affected had been operating since about 1971. And the design basis and all that were probably things that weren't anticipated. But I think the point I'm trying to say is that the nuclear power community learns from these incidents from time to time and upgrade their safety mechanisms in a way that there are risks, no doubt about it, but the technology has matured to the extent that they move one step ahead to doing it. But the point I want to quickly get, you cannot look absolutely in terms of the risk involved in a particular technology. About 40% or more of global electricity generated from coal-fired power plants. If you begin to quantify the damage, the collateral damage, in terms of the thousands of people who die from mining coal for this purpose, the environmental effects from burning coal, the noxious gases, the greenhouse effect, global warming, and so on and so forth, I don't believe any of us would begin to say, stop using coal. What you do is being able to develop technologies in a way that you can mitigate these negative effects, and that's essentially what they're doing in nuclear. But you see, the point I'm also coming is we are starting quite late. There are people who've been doing this for more than 50 years. And when you're in that kind of a position, there is a learning curve. And you have to learn from the positive elements of that learning curve and avoid areas that will be detrimental to us. And I think that is why when we talk about time schedules and the hurry in wanting to generate electricity from nuclear power plants or any other source, no, you have to do it carefully in the way that
if I go with my colleague now, I think, aren't we in a hurry? Aren't we doing this because others are doing it or others have it?
Suleiman, Nigeria is a country with a population now, I think recently we said it's about 167 million persons. the element of sustainable development entails that in every climb, you have to plan it in a way that you provide for the needs of the current generation. Why not impairing the possibility of development of future generations? I think we Nigerians have to go beyond our immediate comfort and what we need to do. If we go on to burn all the gas we've got, the coal, and sell off all the crude oil we've got, from the information that is available in another 25 to 30 years, and if we haven't made any serious finds, strike new oil finds, we might just be producing enough petroleum for our own local domestic use. You need to think wisely on how some of these resources, the revenues, could be invested in a way that you have a country that provides for its present needs as well as for future generations. So we are not in a hurry. You're simply planning. If I tell you we want to work on nuclear power plant in the next 2-3 years, then we're in a hurry. But we're doing it meticulously in a way that is done well. So even if it goes beyond 10 years or whatever, the important operative thing here is do it well, and it has to be successful.